I will prove to you that George Bush and John McCain are actually helping terrorists to defeat and destroy the United States of America. I will reveal a plan to defeat global terrorism in 10 years and tell you how you can help to defeat global terrorism. In order to win the war against terrorism, first one must understand the true nature of terrorist war against America. Human psychology teaches that human behavior is largely controlled by the value beliefs of the individual. That is, people act based upon their beliefs and their values. Terrorist human behavior is similar to other human behavior. Evil values and false beliefs tend to be the roots of terrorist actions. Remove the root causes of evil actions, and you can remove evil actions. I am the inventor of the most effective positive self-change class in existence. I am also the inventor of an ideological philosophy based upon the teachings of Jesus Christ, which can end most human suffering in America and the world. America needs to understand the truth that the war against terrorism is not just one war, but has at least 6 layers of war. The deeper levels of war are the more important wars that control the more surface levels of war. The levels of war from highest to lowest are 1. A core spiritual war for human souls, 2. A psychological war for hearts and minds, 3. An economic war to finance long-term victory, 4. A diplomatic war for national political alignments, 5. A criminal war in small conflicts, 6. A military war in large actions. The reason George Bush and John McCain are losing the global war against terrorism is because, 1. They do not see the surface they only see the surface criminal and military war and thus ignore the more important deeper wars. 2. Their naive actions are actually helping terrorists to defeat and destroy America. In World War II, America won because its economic power of factories and workers produced military hardware to help win the war. As long as America is economically strong and has a strong factory base, then America can never be defeated militarily. The 9/11 attack was an attack against the economy of America. Terrorists are fighting a 50 to 100 year war against America to first weaken America economically so it can later be defeated militarily. To defeat America militarily, terrorists must accomplish 2 goals. 1. Use allies to offshore American factories. 2. Weaken America economically. Guess what? That is exactly what George Bush and John McCain are helping terrorists to do. When George Bush, 1. Offshored American factory jobs, 2. Lost $1 trillion in Iraq, and 3. Kept America addicted to oil, all of those things helped the terrorists to economically weaken America and thus defeat America in the long term. John McCain has promised to repeat the same mistakes of George Bush. He will keep losing money in Iraq rather than fighting our real enemies in Afghanistan and Pakistan. He told voters that if he is president, then the factory jobs offshore to communist China will never come back. Since John McCain endorses the idea of offshoring American jobs to communist China, you know that as president, he will offshore millions of more American jobs, making even more Americans jobless and homeless. John McCain's response to the energy crisis is to give oil companies more land to drill oil on, thus keeping America addicted to oil and thus weak from its energy dependence on others. A vote for John McCain is a vote to keep America addicted to oil, leading to $10 a gallon gas prices and the worst depression America has ever seen. A vote for Barack Obama is a vote to invest in renewable energy so America can drive on relatively free energy from the sun and a future of economic prosperity for America. Barack Obama will fight terrorism on the deeper diplomatic and economic levels and thus being more effective in the war against terrorism. However, that plan can be improved upon. We must fight terrorism at its deepest root level, namely spiritual and psychological. To fight an effective spiritual and psychological war against terrorism, we need a national war against terrorism think tank with experts in religious studies, ethics, psychology, and sociology. We must assure that children are taught to love those who have a different religion than their own, to pressure nations to not allow religious hatred to be taught in their nation. We must be able to boycott oil from nations that do not ban the teaching of religious hatred. But if we remain addicted to oil, as John McCain wants us to do, then we can never win the war against global terrorism. To quickly win the economic war against terrorism, America needs to do the following. 1. Spend $1 trillion in 5 years so most of America's energy comes from renewable sources. America no longer imports oil. 2. Stop wasting money in Iraq and invest it in making America economically strong for its economic war against terrorism. And 3. Reverse the offshoring of American jobs by having a 100% import tax on low-wage imports from nations like Communist China, and by having an import limit from Communist China to be no more than the exports to Communist China. John McCain plans on doing the opposite of those three things, thus helping terrorists to make America economically weak. When John McCain keeps America addicted to oil, he is helping the terrorists to defeat America. Only after we win the economic war against terrorism can we then win the diplomatic war against terrorism and pressure nations to end the teaching of terrorism. We must also use psychology to win the hearts and minds and stop people from following the clerics of mass murder. We must use the spiritual power of teaching the truth to make people understand that mass murder is the path to hell, not heaven. Thus the clerics of mass murder are the servants of Satan who are leading their followers into hell. Only if we have the courage to speak that truth can we open the eyes of those fooled by the cleric servants of Satan. Only by effectively fighting terrorism on all levels, especially the deepest levels, can we defeat global terrorism in 10 years. A vote for John McCain is a vote to lose the war against terrorism by losing the economic war against terrorism, by making America economically weak, by 1. Losing another $1 trillion in Iraq when our real enemy is in Afghanistan and Pakistan. 2. Offshoring millions of more factory jobs to our future enemy, Communist China. 3. Keeping America addicted to oil and energy weak and dependent upon other nations. A vote for Barack Obama is a vote for long-term victory over terrorism through winning the economic war by 1. Not losing $1 trillion in Iraq and rather fighting terrorists where they are. 2. Raising tariffs on imports from Communist China to force companies to give Americans their factory jobs back and thus make America factory strong. And 3. Quickly move to renewable energy, making America energy strong and independent. If Barack Obama also endorses the idea of a national war against terrorism think tank with experts in religion and psychology, then he will win the war against terrorism in perhaps 10 years.